Good morning. Today's session is going to be what I call heads up. As you can see, I have an array of heads here on the table. And the important thing when you're doing a decoy is to make sure the head is in proportion to the body of the decoy. For example, I have a little body like this. Now, a body like this, you obviously don't put a head like this on it because it's way too big, or try to put one of these inletted heads on it, way too big. It needs a head that's going to be proportional to the body. For example, maybe this little puffin head looks proportional on there. Maybe this little head here, a teal head, looks somewhat proportional on there. The head I want to use on here is this one. It's a fat little head, but it's going on a fat little body, and it looks, I think, kind of neat because it'd be tucked down and in. It's perfect, and you could align those heads in different directions. But again, you don't want a head that's going to be too big for the body or too small for the body. And sometimes it's kind of crazy, but little heads go on big bodies and vice versa. But that's just a good rule of thumb. For example, you get a body like this, which is a real good sized body. Now, what kind of head do you put on here? Obviously, you don't put this little head on there, or, this little head on there. It looks ridiculous. You got to put a good sized head on there. This body was literally made for a head like this, which is a Scoter head. And again, what I always do is I always put a push pin in there, drill a hole. This way I can check my angles on how I want my head. This way, that way, this way. You can move it all around. And then when you glue it on, I leave that pin in there. Now that's a Scoter head. I could also put a canvasback head on there. It doesn't look ridiculous. That head looks maybe a little too tall for that one. So I'll take if I can find it here. I think I have another key here, this one here. It's a little lower. I think this might look a little more appropriate on that decoy. And again, you can swing them around all different angles. So you got that kind of a situation. You've got these huge bodies, which are kind of up around the main area. And on those, big body, they usually put an inletted head in where it's kind of shaped out and it slips into the body like that. But you can see that head is very proportional to that body. It kind of fits it, makes it look good. You got that scenario. You got another scenario where you get a body like this, which is kind of flat and rounded off on the sides and all. What kind of head would go on here? A little maybe tucked in head like that. Looks kind of neat, looks appropriate, it kind of flows through the body. Or if you want, you can put a little higher head on there like this, which also fits on there. Again, head, body, proportion, make sure they fit. I'll give you another example. There's a very short, pudgy body, kind of fat. What goes on here? Well, you need a head that's going to compensate and be like that. Like, for example, maybe a head like that, see? Nice, fat, chunky little head to go on a short, chunky little body. That's the way you do that. You can put that head on. You can put a head like this on, which is like another head that's kind of stubby and goes with the appropriate body. When it comes to birds like mergansers, you need to put a head on a merganser that's going to be appropriate. For example, a head like this, that head fits that body. Long body, narrow body, long head, kind of flows right in there. Makes sense, makes a lot of sense. That's the way you do things. Again, you got to be heads up when you're going to put heads up and on a decoy. That's the whole crux of this story. Make sure things look right, they look proportional, and you're going to have yourself a real nice, good-looking decoy. And I'll continue on in another video. I'll show you how you glue these heads on and you move them and position them around. You can have your head facing up like that. You can have it kind of tilting down like that, or around or buried in the body of the bird by cutting off some of the bill and hanging it across there. There's lots of ways you can effectively make things work. One thing I want to show you that's kind of interesting, I showed you this fat little body with a fat little head. You can also take a narrow, kind of tall head, like a grebe would be. Now look at that. Now that doesn't look bad on there because it's simply height added to the short little body. Short body, little height, narrow head. It works. And again, these are just little tips that I think are helpful for you when you're doing your work. You got to know how long the bird's going to be, what kind of head you're going to put on, and what kind of position you're going to put it in. You save yourself a lot of time and trouble, and you're going to have a good looking bird.